everybody has an aptitude. An artist has an aptitude to see things. A scientist has an aptitude to calculate. I guess I personally have an aptitude to work with my hands, but also an engineering aptitude. I understand the mechanics of things. But it's such an artistic trade that you have to see a component and then you build that component. There are no jigs to build it. You have to do it all visually. As a historical detective, going back and trying to understand the thought process of that era and then understand the engineering of that era. You relive that experience and you learn something that enhances your understanding of these unique horse-drawn vehicles. Hi, I'm Doug Hansen. We are at Hansen Wheel and Wagon Shop, our facility near Letcher, South Dakota. Originally, I was born on a family farm about 10 miles upriver, up the James River. So, our shop's located on the bluffs of the James River, eastern South Dakota, and I've been connected to the river. My family's been connected to the river all our lives. I'm a craftsman, so I build something. But to really understand how to build it and how to reverse engineer it, you also have to be a horseman. Because now you got to take the draft animal, hook it to the vehicle, go out and drive up and down the trail, and experience the tasks that this vehicle had to perform. When this all started, and my family had a buggy with a bad wagon wheel, or a buggy wheel that I took on the task of restoring. It was just myself and kind of a hobby, and my hobby gets out of control. Now the work starts coming in, word gets out that, hey, there's this kid in Letcher, South Dakota that's restoring buggies. I hung my shingle out in '78. Our biggest town nearby is Mitchell, South Dakota, and it's just 7 miles east of us, downriver. It's a village on the river, and it is large enough to really supply us with everything that we need. We're really fortunate here in the Dakotas, and I don't know if you hear about this, but we hear it often that the work ethic of the people from the Midwest is, they grew up usually in some type of family business atmosphere, and they just have a strong work ethic. So we have a great pool to draw from. My grandfather, incidentally, who was now living on the farm where I was born, he was going through his second childhood. So he farmed with farmed with horses when he was a kid, and mules, farmed with tractors as a business operator. Retired and went back to playing with horses and mules. So then he started buying old wagons and such. So it started out with the challenge of this wheel. I'd take a wheel apart, I'd look at all the integral parts of it, study the grain structure, orientation, seeking knowledge, all self-taught, learning by my mistakes, doing it the wrong way first. And I was intrigued with that old world craftsmanship and that challenge and that mystery, because my whole life quest has been a mystery of uncovering a lost art. Because none of these old world craftsmen are around to ask, how do you do this? We acquired it for the sole purpose of having it for a pattern. It's definitely not roadworthy. But there's a lot of unique information here that goes back to some of the earlier trail dates. And this wagon could have been some of the attributes that we'd find on a Dearborn or a Jersey wagon. That is one of those obscure wagon designs that was talked about in the early days on the trail, but then it just evaporated. But to me, this is a personal conveyance vehicle, kind of like we would use our pickup truck today. Not real heavy hauling, maybe a little S10 or a little Ranger pickup, throw some gear in it, and go down the trail or go around town doing your business. My favorite part of the whole process is the discovery process. and the engineering and design process. And that's my phase. So I take my chalk out of my pocket and I draw a picture on the floor and I say, here, build it, make it look like this. We've been commissioned to build various stagecoaches of various periods. Holly and I would fly to a museum, document a vehicle. So I'm drawing components and photographing and videotaping, and I come back to the shop with this information and then pass it out to the various craftsmen. So the wheelwright, here's the specs on a wheel. The wainwright, here's the specs on the undercarriage. And the coachmaker, here's the specs on it, and here's the joinery used. Here's all the finite details of it. We found craftsmen who had aptitudes that we could train then in the skills of the wheelwright, the blacksmith, the coachmaker, the painter, the trimmer. And because our shop is set up much like an 1850s wagon shop. We have no cookie cutter processes. It's just passing on the work to our team of craftsmen. We all come together as a team, and in the end we roll a stagecoach out. Line it up, Tim.
Dead center.
So we have 12 employees, and that all the various trades that go along with wagon making. And we're drawing from our rural community. Most everybody has ag background, grew up working, working as a kid on the farm or the ranch, and so they had to have a very good work ethic. We are much more like a shop of fabricators and sculptors. We sculpt stagecoaches and freight schooners, okay?
Name's Jerome Evans. I'm the shop foreman here at Hansen Wheel and Wagon Shop. I've been here the longest, 27 years. I was 21 years old when I met Doug and Holly. I got to build wheels, I got to build wagons, do the blacksmithing, do the painting, started to learn some of the upholstery. Being a shop foreman, I don't get to spend as much time in the shop as I used to. Doug talks to customers and finds their interests and develops their interest. And then once they kind of decide on a vehicle or a project they want to do, it's turned over to me, and I got to come up with the estimate. I got to be the guy that says, this wagon's going to take 150 hours to do, it's going to take 200 board feet of lumber and this much steel, and it's going to take this long to paint it. And I base all that off my experience. I even say the vehicles we build the most often, there's not one of them that's going to be identical to the one that was built before or the one that's built after it.
We're training them in a skill set, but also in a era of design. And so you can't, I always say, you can't make a 57 Chevy Fender, look like a 65 Camaro. It just doesn't work. And it's the same thing in wagon trade. In the wagon trade, we're going through eras of design, style, and inventions. And when we date a wagon, when we look at a wagon, we're looking at those evolutionary signs of production and design.
Well, my name's Tim Hoffman. We are at Hansen Wheel and Wagon. The area of the shop is the wheelwrighting shop. My job here is to keep the shop rolling. In a sense, I'm the maker, repairer of all wagon wheels on up the automotive wooden spoked wheels. So my job title here for the main part is to do that. Everything we do here isn't necessarily just build it, here's your blueprint, do it. Here's a picture. Okay, now we start researching that picture and seeing fine details. What is in the picture, and the person standing beside it, the something that he's holding, to scale what the vehicle is, what size it needs to be, how big it needs to be, what it looks like. So a lot of our work before we even touch, a saw or a board or anything to do it is research on figuring what direction do we need to go, what species of wood or what area of the country is it going to. What our problem is some of the things that they did with the hand tools, we cannot duplicate with a power tool. So we go back to the spoke shave, the draw knife, and finish the product with that to make it look as it was built that 150 years ago, because we can't duplicate it with a power tool. So in a sense, we're still using them tools that are 150 years old. Our shop is lined with them along the walls. The ones that are hung up real high, of course, we have one someplace else in the shop most likely that's a little sharper or a little bit better condition, so we hang the other one up on the wall. The tool I just used was 200 years old to make a tenon. The wheels were built right behind me here. You walk through the shop, it was built in the body was built in the other corner, the gear was built right about where you're standing now. Blacksmithing was all done in the back. Painting was done in this building, so from start to finish, from a pile of lumber and pile of iron, it was built here. On over to the upholstery work and the pinstriping. It was all in-house. In a sense, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We don't need to. The wheel was invented many years ago. The stuff we're working on is 150 years old, even 200 years old. Why do we need to change it? We just need to recondition it or remanufacture it so 200 years down the road, our great-great-grandkids will be able to see a way of life that nobody could even fathom existed. Even today, people don't realize what people had to go through to get anywhere. It wasn't just starting your car up and driving 50 miles. 50 miles was probably a 2-day, 3-day adventure to get.
Because you have to absorb the aura of the era to be able to perform the replication and the accuracy. And that's what we're known for. We're not known for shiny wagons. We're not known for fast wagons. We're known for authentic horse-drawn vehicles.
Blacksmith apprentice starting out, maybe the son, and starting out, he'd be setting up to make nails by the thousands. You know, he had towns to build and boards that needed held together. So as you started progressing into blacksmithing, you would learn simple items such as making nails and learning to make that exact same taper every time. So the repetition of it, building into becoming more of from an apprentice to a journeyman to a professional. So when you're blacksmithing, and especially in the business that we're in, we look at the authenticity of the irons and having original copies around, like what I have hanging on my back wall there. I'll bring those down to look at them, see how they're done, how they're made. It takes 240 some hours for me to iron an entire stagecoach, and with that I have to replicate all of them through my forge and the hammers that I have. And you know, we do have plans that we have saved through the years of doing this, and understanding that a lot of it is when I'm under the hammer and I'm hammering that, it goes back to that making nails. I have to know how long that piece is getting, what size it is as well. It's eyesight that you have to watch for. It's nothing that can just be done. It has time to learn it.
It's pretty good, Quentin. And your stress is all going to be connected through here. Mm-hmm. You know, and you have to make that ring and strap. So this hooks in under the tongue.
Yep.
So you got to have a ring and strap here, and your draft is going to be coming out off that way. And you know, I'd say it's perfect. Yeah, it's cool. Very nice. Very nice.
I grew up about 45 miles southwest of here on a farm. Never been anywhere else. I've always been in this area and enjoy it here. No matter what, we show up for work. This is a job where there is form to everything. You don't cut a piece of wood and stuff it in there. There's always shaping to be done to it, that sort of thing. And the upholstery is the same way. If you get buttons, you get welts, you get all different kinds of things going on within that part of it. The Concord coach takes about 1,200 hours to build from start to finish. The upholstery part, probably 300 to 350 hours of that.
Morris, he does our wainwriting and our restoration and our upholstery, because in a small business you have to wear many hats.
But yes, the hand tools, as far as the Oregon Trail is concerned, they wouldn't have carried that thing. You know, it would have been a box full of these hand tools. Is all they would have had for fixing whatever harness, you know, whatever they had to fix.
We're at the paint booth at Hansen Woolen Wagon Shop. My name is Andy Etzwald, and I do the painting out here, and I've been employed here for about 10 years. I've actually known Doug pretty much my whole life. His wife Holly was my babysitter. So literally since I was old enough to recognize people, I've known Doug and Holly. So these wheels are for a fire cart that'll go to Castlewood, South Dakota when we are all done with them. They'll get another coat or two of paint on them, and then we'll put an antique finish on them to finish them up.
So we've got Andy's been through his painting process back here. Tim, are you going to get this will you get it mocked up today, you think? Yeah. Well, unless you're over here a lot. And then we have the bandwagon to separate. Yeah, and I don't know how far we're going to get today with everything, because I got to get some of this historical stuff covered yet today too. Hopefully it's not raining as hard tomorrow. So, all right, back to work.
So I'm Leah Murray, originally Leah Hansen, and I am Doug and Holly's daughter, older daughter. I also have a younger sister, and I grew up with the business basically. Didn't really know anything else growing up. Our family vacations were all based around wagons of some sort, so I just thought that was the normal thing to do.
You know, my daughter Leah, who runs the office now, she's, you know, advertising, she's PR, she's project management, you know, all those things, you know.
Oh, I would say usually everyone is working kind of on their own project, so there would be you know, enough projects to disperse among each of the guys out in the shop. But if it is a big project, they might all be working on the same project at once. So yeah, so each year we used to do just like a poster calendar, and then it was starting to get hard to narrow down the pictures that we wanted to include in it. And so we started doing a monthly calendar, and we like to highlight different types of vehicles, and then you know, just describe a little bit about the historical significance of them, and then, you know, in relation to special details maybe on each of the vehicles or something. And so this particular calendar we highlighted restoration projects that we did. I would say would be a lot of it. Yeah, so I've always had an interest in photography. We reference our photos on past projects constantly.
What are my favorite vehicles of the 19th century? It has to be the stagecoach, because of the complex suspension and the artful design of it. I mean, the Concord coaches is like, yeah. And that was because it was the perfect design in function, but also in artistry. You know, it was timeless. This is a Concord coach that we have built. Our craftsmen have built this as a replica of a coach that we documented in a museum in LA. This is a Concord mail coach, 9-passenger, and that's talking about the 9 passengers that are on the interior of the coach. So we have 3 seats in here, and we have the forward and back seat, but also a center jump seat. So the tightness of position here, the passengers in the front seat and the passengers on the jump seat have to interlock their knees. The passengers have to interlock their knees to squeeze everybody in here. And that was the elite travel vehicle for stagecoaching, but the mud wagon was a simpler variety that had a lower center of gravity, and it was less expensive, simpler to construct, and hence the Concord coach in gilded, and with 6 white gleaming horses on it, made its appearance into town, but the mud wagon was in the rough, because it always arrived covered in mud. So what's interesting about a chuck wagon is that it's a mobile kitchen on wheels that's set up to prepare food and to carry the provisions for the cowboy and the subsistence for the cowboy. So the bed rolls, the equipment to maintain their tack, and it was their home. This is where they wanted to be when they got done at night. The chuck wagon had a chuck box on the back, equipped with all of the fixings to prepare a meal, from knives and sourdough and dish pans to coffee. And all this would be prepared on the back of the wagon. Above us we have a fly, so come rain, shine, snow, whatever, the cook had a workstation that he could work under and keep going. I set out on a quest and spent a lot of time, I guess working with this, and then I didn't want to just read about it, I wanted to experience it. And it's amazing how well all this equipment works that our forefathers, in developing the wilderness, and I guess got us through where we are today, really, and settling the everything west of the Mississippi, was through these advents of ingenuity, fortitude, and grit is how they got there. So, and that's what we're passionate about. That's what built the vehicles that traveled across Dakota Territory. That's our South Dakota heritage, and that's just what we're all about, and that's what I've spent my life uncovering that, lost knowledge to achieve that. One question I get asked a lot is, well, first of all, why is there a wagon shop? But the other question is, is there anybody else in the country that does the same thing that you do? And yes, every Amish village has a buggy shop because they drive buggies. I have associates around the United States that are involved in different aspects of the trade that I might network to on a unique vehicle that we have in. But there's really nobody that does exactly like what we do. We are very much a family structured atmosphere, but we rely heavily on the integrity of our employees. And now my daughter Leah, who grew up in the family business, she worked here as a little kid, but she's very good at it, and she's passing on that legacy of the business in the family. The transportation history that we're involved in, I think, is important for everybody, because it's if you don't know where you've been, how do you know where you're going? Because if you don't have that knowledge of how we got here, I think you're really misunderstanding the task of life before us.
This project was made possible with support from South Dakota Humanities, a nonprofit partner of the National Endowment for the Humanities. Visit sdhumanities.org. The Oregon-California Trails Association, preserving the historic emigrant trail legacy by promoting research, education, preservation, and public awareness of America's emigrant trails and their history. Visit octa-trails.org.